Connacht and then over all areas tonight. Lowest temperatures of 14 to 16 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
The News Round on Off the Ball.
With Gillette, we don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette, made of what matters.
This is News Talk.
Yes, you're welcome along. Really good show this evening. Jason Malumbi, Irish under-21 captain, fresh off a brilliant season. He's been on loan at Millwall from Brighton. He's going to join us on the football show after 9. We have the Ulster coach after 8 o'clock. Dan McFarland will talk to us. Rugby is inching towards the weekend of August 22nd. Brentford against Fulham at Wembley. Premier League football and gazillions at stake. Damien Delaney, as I mentioned there before, the news headlines at 7. He knows what it's like to play in one of these games. The pressure, a lot of livelihoods at stake, all the money. He'll take us down memory lane to 2013 when Palace beat Watford in extra time in the sunshine at Wembley. And Kevin Kilban, we hope, will join us after 9. We're not sure. We're thinking Kev's around, but he hasn't fully confirmed. So if you want to tweet him and nag him, feel free. 53106 is the text number. We're at Off the Ball on Twitter. Richie McCormack, hello to you.
It's that kind of surety about the show, Joe, I've come to know and love in the past few years.
Well, there's a sense of danger about things, you know. We were briefly talking to Kev, and JP was talking to him. He said, yeah, no, I think I can. So after 9, is it? Yeah, after 9. Yeah, no, I think that's good. And then the phone went dead.
Yeah, sounds about right.
So that's where we are. Adrian Barry, good evening. Oh, we can't hear you. Go again. No, we're missing you, Adrian. You're going to
That's a shame. That's a shame.
Absolutely. Mea culpa. You think I'd know this stuff by now.
What did you do wrong? What did you do wrong?
I have my microphone on mute.
Ah, well, that would make sense then.
Yeah.
We're
expecting Kilban to be the one unreliable thing today, but there we go.
Were you away last week, or did I imagine that?
Was I away last week? I was away one day last week. I was not working one day last week.
Oh, that was it.
It felt like a massive void in your life, Joe.
I wasn't sure, were you on a staycation, or were you just off?
Don't use that word. It's just a holiday.
Yeah, but it's a staycation holiday.
No, a staycation is when you stay at home in your house and do like holiday-ish things around you. So like you just do sod all and kind of treat yourself and put your feet up and maybe sit out in the sun a little bit. Like going to Kerry or to Galway or Donegal or whatever for a week's break is a holiday. Simple as.
Sounds like someone needs a staycation.
Joe, don't make me throw this tea at you.
So look, there's a few different bits going on. I know, Adrian, something you wanted to talk about is connected to Richie's first story, if that makes sense. So we might kick off the news round with thanks to Gillette. We don't just play the game, we change it. Gillette made of what matters. That first story, Richie, being crowds at GAA matches.
Yeah, the government, and not just GAA matches, of course, League of Ireland matches and other sporting events of an outdoor nature, the government have decided against allowing an increase in crowd sizes at matches. Their decision not to press ahead with phase 4 of the roadmap from Monday means that crowds will remain capped at 200 at outdoor events. It had been hoped that attendances could increase to a maximum of 500, but NEFIT have advised against this. The GAAs, we know, have been lobbying hard for the increase, with GAA President John Horan making a direct plea to the Taoiseach, Micheál Martin. The GAA have cancelled season tickets ahead of this year's Inter-County Championships. They say they had no other choice and had delayed taking this step until now, as we'd hoped the government guidelines would be eased to the point where we could accommodate all season ticket holders to attend their chosen games.
Adrian, I know you watched a game via the streaming service, a local GAA match over the weekend. Was it all right?
That probably explains it. Sums it up nicely. Yeah, it's funny actually, even looking at the game, it was the Westmeath Senior Football Championship at Lawn, the aristocrats of Westmeath football, Joe, club football up against Garrycastle, who'd be there. You could literally throw a stone from one pitch into the other, and to say there's a little bit of a tasty rivalry between the two would be, to put it mildly. And that was kind of the main context as to why I forked out my tenner to watch the game. And yeah, it was grand. And I was actually looking at it. It was played in Tubberclare, rural pitch, out the road from the town, and looking at it, you definitely felt actually there's loads of room for more people to be at the game. Obviously, there was a smattering of supporters. I don't know when squads and backroom teams are taken into account, how many tickets are left for fans and how they're distributed. I've actually absolutely no idea. I can only imagine that it's like a fight to the death. it did look like there was loads of room for more fans to be in there, and then I did start to think about that. But I see that Ronan Glynn has said today that it's not really even so much to do with the capacities of or the capabilities for grounds to hold a whole pile of people. It's more the getting in and out, and that probably makes a bit of sense.
For kind of like a comparison's sake, I remember seeing the figures last week associated with UCD's first home game back. As we know, kind of the League of Ireland are in the same position. They said once they took squads and coaching teams and all that out of the equation, and the cap being at 200, there were 83 people allowed into Belfield on the night, and I think they were all basically going to be just among people who were invited to the game or people who would be closely associated with the club. So even then, it's not actually a crowd per se that's getting to it. It's people associated with the club that they have to trickle these tickets down towards.
Yes. Like Adrian, I'm in two minds on the whole situation surrounding people attending these matches and whether we should fit more in or not. Certainly, I agree, when you look at the grounds, there is room for more people. Of course there is, to socially distance, not least when it's outdoors. At the same time, you got mainly I'm coming down in the safety first. Let's exercise extreme caution, and for sport to agitate and to try and nudge the government towards allowing more people into these matches is a bit tone deaf. Like, sport just needs to be grateful that it's happening at all. Let's, like when it's things like restaurants opening and livelihoods, I'm far more willing to take a risk. I went out for dinner for the first time over the weekend, and it was brilliantly done and organised, and you got to say, the restaurant I was in, it was kind of just, standard pub food kind of thing. They were doing a great job, and, that's the economy. A club game of football is so far down the list, and I don't think the GAA actually should be agitating for more. I think there should be an element of the players are back playing. Mental health in that regard is one of the big things we were talking about was people getting out and exercising. So that box has been ticked. Whether it's 200, whether it's 500, let's just go with the more cautious number, I think. And if we have to take risks going forward, then let's at least have a serious economic benefit to those risks. That's sort of where I am.
Yeah, and I think even the agitating for more, because there was definitely at one point, it might have been 2 weeks ago, a statement from the GAA saying that they wanted to be made an exception of to allow more supporters in. Doesn't really work, obviously. I mean, if there was more of a sport-wide thirst for that, at least it was a sort of a combined thing. Yeah. But yeah, look at even looking at that game at the weekend, something like the car park was the thing that stood out like a sore thumb, where whatever number of people were at the game were all jammed into the car park, and they're all going to have to head back there afterwards. So it's something as small as that. And like you're saying, ultimately, club or team want to be involved in a scenario where, somebody that's been at the game or somebody who's at the game has had COVID-19 and it's spread, or like that. It's just like you say, there was a statement, I know we spoke about it before at some point during the restart of sport, saying where somebody had said one case and one never mind about one death, but one case is one too many, and you probably have to go with that. Yeah.
Rich, where we go next?
To Ballybuffet, into the second half of this evening's SSE Electricity Premier Division game there. 5:45 starts, and it's currently Finn Harps 0, Shelburne 1. Ryan Brennan with the goal for Shells after 29 minutes. Shells were reduced to 10 men after just 11 minutes. Carl Shepherd shown a straight red card for a dangerous challenge, but Shells in the ascendancy as we speak in that one. Meanwhile, Brentford are looking to return to England's top flight tonight for the first time since 1947. They face West London rivals Fulham in the Championship playoff final. The game is being played behind closed doors at Wembley, and kick-off is at 7:45. Alexander Mitrovic and Republic of Ireland defender Cyrus Christie both on the bench tonight for Fulham.
Speaking of Fulham, Adrian Barry, is there a dadcast connection to Fulham?
The most bizarre combination of words that you could possibly expect to see. It's sort of a slightly bizarre one, Joel. Right, yeah, we'd set up a tweet earlier today just to say that we were recording a dadcast, and that Dave McIntyre was asking the question about how to convince your kids to love sport and any advice or tricks. He was essentially like, look, Dave's eldest kid is 5, so he was sort of making the point that he doesn't seem to be showing the same thirst for sport that Dave would have. Now, to be fair, I mean, are there many in the country that share the same thirst for sport that Dave does? I'm not sure. But anyway, his kid was a little lagging behind where he would want him to be at this stage. So it was replied to by the ever elusive and hopefully coming up a bit later in the show, Kevin Caban, with convince, ? Just get out and play, facepalm emoji. So that sat there for a couple of hours this afternoon with just one like. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been a Kevin Kilbane tweet, because they're always so full of wisdom and wit that they ever get just one like. Well, it sat there with one like, Joe, for most of the afternoon, and that like was from Tom Kearney, who's been named in the Fulham team, playing the Championship playoffs this evening, the richest game in football. And he's spending his afternoon looking up what's going on in the life of Dave McIntyre and Kevin Kilbane. I mean, I think that's perfect preparation for the game this evening.
That is glorious. That has neatly knitted together all of the themes of the last 12 minutes perfectly. Dave McIntyre once told me, and sorry, if Dave is listening and I'm misquoting you, you can give me the specifics that are correct, but I remember him saying he had a long train journey, and to kill the time he had spent it trying to remember all the FA Cup winners as far back as he could. This was how he had spent his time in like a world where we have the internet in our phones. So nobody will love sport as much as Dave. What was the conclusion on the Dadcast? I mean, I would presume sport has a lot more competition these days than back in our day, Adrian.
Well, Joe, listen, welcome along to the Dadcast anytime you want, because it took us about 45 minutes to come to that conclusion that you've neatly summed up there. That's essentially it. Like, I was making the point that when I was a kid, we didn't have the BBC, and we had to go across the road. Football was on at Saturday at 3 o'clock, and so we had to go across to our neighbour's house, Mrs. Brady, and they would have the football on. There'd be apple tart and tea, and there'd be football, and it was a massive occasion. And that was sort of what got me into, it might have been the apple tart more than the football, but that was what got me into being crazy about football and following sport. And the diversity of options there now, like for kids, I don't know. I don't know. Like, it's impossible to know. And I also wouldn't, by the way, go down the easy kind of like, kids of today type nonsense, because I'm sure there'll be just as many football fanatics. I mean, there's plenty of evidence for that with packed stadiums, and we're allowed to get into them. So, but yeah, the big thing was diversity, and also I think you just got to his kid is 5, like.
Yeah.
Yeah,
give him a chance. Yeah. By the way, and I had forgotten this, maybe you remembered, but 2013, we're going to chat to Damon Delaney about playing in one of these games. Brentford looking to get back to the top flight for the first time since 1947. It was a £120 million game in 2013 when Damien Delaney was playing against Watford. I'm not sure what it is in 2020. It's probably, double that maybe, or certainly getting up towards 200 million. But anyway, the winner in this 1-0 game for Crystal Palace in 2013 was scored by none other than Kevin Phillips. I had totally forgot. Yeah. Kevin Phillips wound up at Crystal Palace. And as he's taken the penalty, the commentator points out that Kevin Phillips, this is 2013, started his career in 1994 for Watford. And there he is still banging in the goals a gazillion years later. So he was an unbelievable player. Anyway,
it was always one of the highlights, that game of the kind of the football calendar. Like, I remember getting home, their June bank holiday over there is similar to the August bank holiday in that it's a skew to what we have here. And they used to have the playoff final of a bank holiday Monday. Used to always, even without fail, even more than the FA Cup final, used to be a Sunday afternoon, and it used to always be an incredible game of football. Like, you're talking about 4-3s, 3-3s, 5-4s. Between like the likes of Bolton and Leicester and Blackburn and Derby County and all these teams growing up in the 90s. It was always an incredible thing to come home of an afternoon from school in the middle of June from primary school and find out there's a game of football on, and it turns out to be an absolute banger. And I think they've only ever kind of kept up with that since then. I think the goals ratio might have lowered a little since then, but the intensity and the thrill a minute kind of nature of those games, apart from the one that I remember QPR won a couple of years ago, which was awful, aside from that, they've always been great crack.
And you just, at full time, players just running around screaming, "We're rich, we're rich." We did.
And also out of a job soon. Most of them.
There's a text from Martin in Newry. He makes a fair point. Apple Tart, podcasts about parenting, FA Cup nostalgia. Is Off the Ball turning into Live at 3, he wonders. Well, what a show that was.
I wish.
We can only aspire. We can only aspire.
Yeah.
I honestly think the anti-expert, anti-science, anti-intellectual movement that's in vogue in politics around the world is emboldening the clowns who want to ignore the medical experts and get back to their idea of normal, says Reese. And hi, I got an email today from the GA to advise that my Hill 16 season ticket is cancelled for the remainder of 2020. WTF, Dennis in Wexford. Dennis, there's this thing called a pandemic, and we reckon it's quite serious. So that's probably what that has to do with, I would think. Are we surprised that his season ticket is cancelled?
No. Like, they're talking about the capacities at Crow Park being 30 to 40%, best case scenario come October. So there's just no way.
But I mean, we're going to have to go to all bets are off season tickets. I mean, they're just going to have to start from scratch here, because if they were to allow all the season tickets to get in, then they'll beat capacities right off the bat.
Isn't that the question?
And we're not going to have like the odds on us having crowds in at these games. I mean, we got to get real here. What we're heading into is a winter and a second wave, and just.
UEFA actually, I think, are actually being fairly sensible about this. What I'd seen from, I think L'Equipe had reported last week that UEFA are planning on having the September-October international matches are definitely going to be played behind closed doors, no matter what the guidance is in that particular country.
Good.
So that they'll advise whoever is playing at home that there's going to be no crowd present, no matter, like in France we've seen 500 people or whatever in the French Cup final recently. Across Europe they're trying to be a little bit more tentative about it as well. But I think UEFA are going to put their foot down and just say, listen, no, we're not going to have it at all.
I just think we need a reset. Like, I mean, we were staring down the barrel of nothing for the rest of the year, and now we've got something back and we're sort of moving. And for sport to be at the front of the queue agitating for some kind of special dispensation and crowds here and crowds there, like, I think we are. I mean, it's good that we're learning to live with it, but equally I think we're forgetting how serious this whole thing is and how serious it could become so quickly. So, I mean, you know, fans together at matches, I just don't think we should be even putting pressure on the government in that way. I think the GAA should take a lead. They were praised at the start for taking a lead on this, and maybe they should go back to taking a lead on it instead of looking for special dispensation.
One thing I'd say on the season tickets is, is there a case that if we are in a situation where some fans are allowed back in, that a certain amount of those should go to season ticket holders? Like, is there no value in being now a season ticket holder?
Yeah, 100%. I've no problem with that. And I would presume that may still happen, but maybe there had to be an initial cancelling across the board, because they're not going to be able to let all of those people back in ultimately. But I don't think anyone would have a problem then if, sorry, who sent the text? I've lost his name. But if he's front of the queue then when they do let them in. But I just still think that should be a huge if at this stage. Like, why are we taking a chance? Snooker.
Yes, indeed. Mark Allen has resumed 5-4 up on Jamie Clark in their first round match at the World Snooker Championships in Sheffield. Anthony McGill awaits in round 2. Allen's training partner, though, Jordan Brown, is out despite a spirited afternoon session. He lost 10-6 to the 3-time champion Mark Selby. Martin Gould raced into a 7-2 lead over Stephen Maguire in the afternoon session. That's how they left it. A shock of the first round came this morning with 2005 champion Sean Murphy beaten 10-6 by Thailand's Naporn Senkem.
Cricket then?
Yeah, a century from Captain Owen Morgan helped England set a huge target for Ireland in their third and final one-day international at Southampton. The visitors were bowled out today for 328, with Morgan top scoring on 106 from just 84 balls. A short time ago currently in reply, Ireland are 91 for 1 from 15.2 overs, so ticking along nicely at the moment.
Okay, very good. Eric Donovan was on the show last week. He was in great form. He always is. He's always brilliant. And this fight against Zelfa Barrett on Friday week, I think, is now for a title.
Stakes at play. Eric Donovan's going to get to fight for a title next week. It's been confirmed that his bout with Zelfa Barrett will be for the IBF Intercontinental Super Featherweight title. The fight is part of Matchroom's Fight Camp series being held in Eddie Hearn's back garden. Donovan and Barrett, as we say, will meet on Friday week.
Okay. Dennis in Wexford, it was who sent that text about his season ticket. Sorry, yeah, Dennis in Wexford. Apologies, Dennis.
Dennis in Wexford, by the way, who has a season ticket for the Hill.
Well, listen, they've got Davey, they've got Paul Galvin. Dennis is facing... Dennis was planning for a big year.
This is
Urban
the
sprawl, Adrian, urban sprawl
of Ireland.
Yeah, I guess it is, yeah. So I presume that was right across the board. Everybody's season tickets were cancelled. I haven't had any other texts in. Fair enough.
I think
everybody got emails.
Probably makes. By the way, on the club stuff, like, I haven't watched and Athlone is my club, obviously, and I haven't watched a club game. Been at one, or definitely follow the scores at times on Twitter, but I haven't been at a game in 20 years. And it's really, watching the game yesterday, even though Athlone were beaten, really reignited something that I was not even sure was there anymore. I was so much so I was on the club website earlier on looking up gear, like t-shirts, I just think, like, it's like the production wasn't amazing. It wasn't like sort of 40 camera setup and a who's who of commentary team or anything like that, but it was a way of following it that I never would have done before, and I think I'll be back for more.
And had it ever been streamed before, Adrian?
Not that I know of, Joe. Not that I know of. They've started to do so. It's like ERV TV that's run by a third-party production company, but they're producing games now all over the place. And it popped up in my timeline on, might have been Friday or Saturday, saying the game was on and it was going to be streamed over there, and it was 10 quid. And it's not like 10 quid is a fair whack for a club game like that. I'd love to know what the audiences were for it. And it was just enough. It was a one camera setup, and one of the corners had like a giant classic Club GA style, a giant rusty pole right in the way, so any action down in that corner you just were never going to see. So there was loads of little quirks to it like that, but to just get to see the game, and it wasn't amazing, but it definitely ignited something in me.
Well, it might accentuate club games right across the country being streamed. This might, in a couple of years' time, we'll be hopefully looking back on COVID with it long behind us and saying, that was what led to these games being all streamed, and people right across the world feeling a bit homesick, wanting to reconnect with their parish. That's when this started, and it'll be part of some GAA Go package, and you could see that working quite well. Yeah, definitely. It's 100. I think what this has proven. It's one of the positive impacts of this thing, that it's doable now. Rich, where are we going next?
UEFA says they will take travel restrictions into account for the upcoming Champions League and Europa League qualifiers. All qualifying round ties, as we know, will be one-leg affairs, with the team drawn first gaining home advantage. However, Ireland currently has a green list that has narrowed from 15 to 10 countries in the past hour. UEFA is going to ask each club for relevant travel restrictions no later than 48 hours before each draw.
On the football front, by the way, I should tell you, Champions League is back on the UEFA theme, and to celebrate, OTB has teamed up with Pepsi Max and Doritos to announce a special remote roadshow live. It's going to be August 20th. There will be a special VIP video call with David Myler for 5 lucky winners. Not only do you ask the questions, you also win a Pepsi Max and Doritos hamper. And for your chance to win tickets to either of these brilliant experiences, keep an eye on OTB social channels over the next week, or if you search OTB Sports in your app store, you'll find us there and the details there. All with thanks to Pepsi Max and Doritos. The Champions League is back, and it should be a brilliant month ahead. Richie, there is somebody wondering about groupings for the PGA in
Is that you?
Harding Park. No, I know them. I know them. I know them. I have them written down. I can give them.
Is the other person N. Murphy by any chance? Or,
We know them. We're on top of this. We're on top of this.
Okay. Are you? Yeah. Okay. Rory McIlroy grouped with Tiger Woods and world number 1 Justin Thomas for the first 2 rounds of the US PGA at Harding Park.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah, Shane Lowry's got a pretty decent group as well. He's going to be alongside Brooks Koepka and Gary Woodland. Bryson DeChambeau spends the first 2 days in the company of Ricky Fowler and Adam Scott.
Very good. So Woods, Justin Thomas, Rory McIlroy, and then Koepka, Woodland and Lowry. Lowry's in good form. He was in top 10 finish last week at the WGC. The one thing that jumps out at you about that group, Koepka and Woodland, Lowry is by no means short, but those two are monsters. They are bombers, and sometimes that can knock you off your rhythm a touch if you're spending the day, 10, 15, maybe sometimes 20 yards behind some of your competitors. So that'd be the only thing, but he's experienced enough to handle that now. And then, McIlroy, Thomas, Woods. Justin Thomas was unbelievable last weekend. McIlroy has been not good since golf came back. And Tiger Woods, well, none of us know. Woods is just...
Has he played apart from that Mickey Mouse tournament?
No, he's played one full tournament and did very little.
Memorial.
Did very little in it in Memorial, yeah.
Right.
I would suspect for the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, as long as his back holds on, Woods will effectively just play the majors and like a tiny smattering of tournaments. That's all he's interested in. That's all he's doing. So he was at Harding Park over the weekend when the WGC was on, and he was at Harding Park trying to bone up on the course and do his prep work and everything. So he's taking it very seriously. So that's where Tiger is. We don't know. And at Memorial, he played really well a couple of days, and then on the Friday, he said his back was sore and he played terribly. And he said, that's just the way it is now. If I wake up and my back's sore, then I'm not going to play great. And I'm just hoping, effectively, there are 4 consecutive days where that doesn't happen. So it's a precarious game plan, obviously.
He'll have enough exemptions, Joe, I presume, to get him through the next few years. He doesn't need to worry about clocking up his tally on the PGA Tour.
Hey, listen, I think Tiger Woods can retire for 10 years and click his fingers and come back to whatever tournament he wants. He won the Masters last year. I know it feels like a long time ago. So that's a 5-year exemption right off the bat. Sorry, Richie, where are we going?
Mark Allen is just taking a 6-4 lead, should mention before we toddle off. Wigan, meanwhile, have lost their appeal against the 12-point deduction they were handed for going into administration. It means the club's relegation to League One stands, and Barnsley will remain in the Championship. While the West Coast Eagles have signed up 3 Irish players ahead of the new women's AFL campaign. Tipperary's Aisling McCarthy has put pen to paper on a 2-year contract after being traded from the Bulldogs, while Mayo sisters Grace and Niamh Kelly have also extended their contracts with the Eagles until 2022. And good news for Gavin Bazunu. Today, the Republic of Ireland under-21 goalkeeper added to Manchester City's Champions League squad, with Scott Carson's contract expiring at the Etihad. The former Shamrock Rovers keeper is now City's third choice. They resume their European campaign with the last 16 second leg at home to Real Madrid this coming Friday.
Brendan has texted in to say, I think the issue with the GA refunding season tickets is that the refund is just 40 quid when they cost 120 quid. Is that in any way in line with the games that did happen? How many league games would have happened? Not too many, or enough?
The majority of group games.
Oh, they did, of course, yeah.
Happen, yeah.
So I presume that's the thinking there. It's a ratio of the games that did happen, Brendan. I haven't looked into it. I didn't actually realise that news until we got the text in, but I presume that's what it is. So a season ticket, 120 quid for the year, and that guarantees you, what, all your county games and then the right to buy a ticket for the final? Is that how it works? Typical media. None of us have had to pay in. Adrian Barry, you're a disgrace.
All I'm doing these days is streaming club games, Joe. I've forgotten about this inter-county stuff. It means nothing to me anymore.
Oh, yeah. And then you stamp that media pass, or you get in the corporate train. That's how you operate. It's terrible. Brendan, we'll check that out with the GA for you and what the logic is, if it's a refund of just 40 when they cost 120. I'm not too sure. I presume, I can only presume it is. They feel that's the ratio of games that you did get into, but I'm not too sure. Adrian Barry, thank you.
Thanks, lads.
Richie, thanks very much.
Nice one.
We have Dan McFarland after 8 o'clock, the Ulster coach. He's in his second season now. He's done a fantastic job and really engaging character. So he's on the way after 8. And up next, Brentford against Fulham at Wembley is all kinds of pressure. Damien Delaney's played in one of these games. He'll talk to us next.
Today was just a day when all the numbers changed, the clocks ticked.
We have to be really positive in the game and to start on the front foot rather than the back foot. And I think everything else will fall into place if we can do that.
And we need to see that against Italy. Courage. We need players with courage and balls.
We're talking to the fans today. They did say they will all be devastated if they are forced to go home today. They have 90 minutes for Ireland to somehow try and change it.
Jeff Hendry trying to be a very physical presence at the edge of the box, takes a shot left footed, and it flashes just wide. The first real chance of the game.
And O'Neill will be very, very pleased with the